Okay, everybody, we have 51 people here today. This is like a really big group, and it's so cool to see everybody. And I'm going to do my screen share, and I want to introduce my great friend and former colleague, Kaya Fortune.
How's
Hi.
everybody doing today? All right. Thank you, Meadow, for that introduction. So my name is Kyle Fortune. I've been an artist since I was born. I guess we are all born as an artist. And so I come from Compton, California, but I was born in Oakland, California. And my mom was an art teacher here at Bushrod Park in Oakland. So she was the art teacher, and then she was a special needs teacher in Los Angeles, California, and a principal special needs school for 30 years or so. So most of my art influence comes from my mother, pretty much, and in the community in which I lived in. Um, I thought it was important to add, when I was a kid growing up, I didn't see a lot of African American artists in museums. I didn't see African American artists represented in books. I didn't see African American artists or the vision of my culture visualized in any form of literature at all. So I was fortunate enough to be influenced by an organization called the Compton Art Academy, which was in Compton, California, where I lived at. And I was able to meet a couple of artists who just passed away, Elliot Pickney and John Otterbridge. So I was about 13 or 14 years old, and my mom took me over there. And the rest is history from me learning about the Black aesthetic, talking about Black culture, Black identity, and really talking about other artists too. So they turned me on to people like Gene Arp, and turned me on to de Kooning and all other types of painters and other disciplines. My work is reflecting African American culture. I kind of focus sometimes on the blues. I focus on jazz. I focus on voodoo and different religious practices from the African diaspora. And so those things I try to, at one sense or another, heal our community. I try to create visions and images that kind of take us back to our history and sort of gives the ability to reflect on who we are, what's our purpose, and also what's our spiritual purpose. So I want to start
I'm going
with,
to start the screen share, Kaya. Does that sound good?
huh?
I'm going to start the screen share now.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Meadow. Hi,
Hi.
Meadow.
Hi, Spearsy.
Hello, before you do that, would you also, this is Ari, will you share me so that Becky and I can switch?
There we go. I spotlight you.
Okay, ready? Yeah. Okay, so my name is Kyle Fortune, artist and educator. It's a photograph of me in my studio. I have a studio which is in Jacqueline Square, and it's always good to have a studio, but you necessarily don't have to have a separate place. You can have a studio in your house. You know what I mean? I think you can map out a place in your house somewhere close to you and create your own studio. All right. And I also say that it's important that whenever you go out of your house, I always like to carry a drawing book or a sketchbook, because I might be inspired, out in the community somewhere. And it's your personal journal to sort of document your life and what you're going through and what you're doing also. So I like that sketchbook as sort of documenting where I am, people I see, things I'm influenced by also. Okay, Meadow, we go to the next slide, please.
Yep. Wait, did I go too far? Wait, there we go. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah. So these are two pieces that I worked on. I was heavily influenced by graffiti artists. My mother was very sort of religious, so I wasn't able to go out too much when I was younger and spray paint on walls and express myself the way I wanted to. Because if you got caught, my mother would definitely be very upset about that. So later on, as I go along and sort of get into sort of a fine art sort of perspective in my artwork, I wanted to really bring spray painting and that element of spray painting into my fine arts work, which I hadn't seen when I was coming up. And so the one to my far left, your far right, is dealing with a series of stencils that I use. Sometimes I cut these stencils out. Sometimes I use them from other elements. And my idea is to layer. I have a sense, I like to layer the color, right? So I want this piece to become more than a flat image. I want it to become more of a three-dimensional image. And this is something and someone I never knew, which was my grandfather. So this was really attributed to my grandfather, the spirit of my grandfather, who no longer was living. So this is the spirit of him, like he's present, right? But I wanted to give a feeling of him. And then he has the guardian gate that's guarding his spirit. And then and then the birds that are taking flight, right? And so this is, you see that it's a very ghost-like image. And right above if you look at right above the gate, in the very center, there's a spiral, there's a circular piece here. And that's the chakra of the soul, right? That's the center of who we are, the chakra of our soul. And it sort of gives us a presence, and it gives us a presence of present, past, and future, okay? The second one that I'm looking at is really drawing on African tradition and African culture. This is two twins. In African culture, in between Ghanaian culture, there's something called the Ibenji twins. And these twins are sort of symbolic symbols of the sort of unifying and prosperity of the community. And in this case, I used stencils. You can see how on the body, I used the stencil form on the body. You can see behind it, I used a grid to sort of frame the actual image itself. And at the very top of the particular piece, that is simply a piece of iron that I found that goes on top of the usually security gates. So I like the images of security gates, and people don't understand that when you look at a security gate, no matter one you might see, at the very, very bottom, if you look at that triangular pattern at the very bottom, the triangular pattern, that is the sign in African culture, a symbol of beauty. Even though we use it as a utilitarian function all the time as a security gate, it is a symbol of beauty in other cultures. And I sort of spray painted right around the security gate at the top. And then you can notice the one at the bottom. I just spray paint around it. So you actually lay it down with a light background and you use a dark color on top so you can have that background pulls forward. And this is some other images you can see around the image down at the top and the bottom, where I'm taking images, taking patterns and layering them on top of each other. So maybe light image on top of a dark image, vice versa. So all these have some historical context for me when I start to work. I'm not a person who sits and plans things out too much. Sometimes I do if I'm working on a special project, but usually a lot of it is just sort of spontaneous sometimes, particularly how I'm using color and how I'm addressing the issues of color here, okay? We can go to the next one, okay? So this is another part of my spray paint series. Once again, I'm going back to Africa as sort of my connection because that's where I'm from, you know what I mean? And so I've actually done my DNA to find exactly what part of Africa I'm from. And so I've been pulling a lot of concepts from where I am traditionally that I didn't know before DNA, before you can do your DNA, a lot of people didn't know where they were from. And so this image is important because we have a elder who is a woman. And once again, I use that security gate, which is made of iron. That particular security gate is associated with a spirit in West African culture called Shango. And Shango is the character of fire and iron and fire. And iron she is actually praising to Shango in the form of a security gate that I saw a photograph from Haiti. So when she does that, and you notice that the triangular pieces, spray paint pieces along the corner, left and right, are also the symbols of beauty we talked about. And it's a basic security gate that everybody has around, right? And I have the heart. If you look at the security gate, the double heart, which is a veve, which is also a symbolic symbol of unity, and power and love. So that's our basic symbol of why I use that. And remember when I was spray painting around this shape that I created out of metal, I actually did the white background first, and then I spray painted blue on top of it to give it more dimension, and you can see how you can play with it. Sometimes it comes out good, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I like to play with the form and let's leave it sometime. I don't want to go back and tighten it up, and sometimes it's good to do things and just leave the image the way it is, okay? And settle with it. And my friends always tell me, I always go back and do things a lot, and they say, just do another one. So I've learned how to just do it and do another one. And to the other side, you have these bottles at the very bottom, right? And which one of these bottles have an Adinkra symbol, and they have different significance of things. Of some says unity and power and strength on the bottles at the bottom. And then you can see a image that is sort of, it's kind of hard to see, maybe it's shadowy, that I've done some spray paint patterns inside this image of our spirit, Shango. So Shango is also represented by the iron fence, and also represented in the physical sense in the image to the far left for me, far right for you, in the sense of energy. So I wasn't concerned about his physical appearance. I was more concerned about his spiritual appearance in the idea and concept of energy, because we all are a ball of energy, right? If we break down his physical self, we are energy, right? So I wanted to define it in the sense of energy and not in the sense of a physical representation. Okay. All right. Okay, we can go to the next one. So I have two images here. So I'm transitioning from our spray paint idea to more painting here. And once again, my whole idea is really sometimes looking at Black male identity. So the strength and the power of Black male identity. And in America, sometimes that identity is always skewed by negativity, by media, and represented in so many different ways, a negative interpretation of African-American men. So my idea was to, if it's negative, then I've got to make it positive, right? And the first one is with the Afro, is called the Righteous Defender. And once again, it's a spiritual, has sort of a tribal sort of face design to the character. It is watching you, is the all-seeing eye. And it's an ancestral kind of image that I wanted this spirit to always live, right? And I wanted it to be able to be like a guiding force in the lives of all people, not just Black people, but all people, a guiding force. And so I create some of these images always in the sense of an ancestral kind of image sometimes, or in reference to my grandfather and my father, who I never really knew. So these images, I'm trying to recreate memories, even from my own experience, through my artwork, okay? And the next one, to the next side, I love jazz and I like jazz musicians. And one of my favorite jazz musicians, this was inspired by Duke Ellington, who was a great pianist and a great jazz musician. If you're not familiar with him, you should always look him up. And I wanted to connect him with a voodoo, which is a religion that comes from Africa, and it now lives in different parts of the African diaspora, from Cuba. It also lives in Haiti and Jamaica, in South America, and Brazil, all over the world. And I wanted to say that Duke Ellington, as a musician himself, his music made me feel a certain way. His music created not only the sound of music, but created a sense of color, right? A sense of aspiration and futurism too. I want to talk about some of my characters are futurist, means they're looking at not just at this moment, but beyond this moment, where we all can get along and understand and have empathy for each other and be able to create a world of peace and harmony. So a lot of my characters are based on creating that peace and harmony. So if you look at Duke Ellington's face, he's in black and white. Black and white are colors that are usually used in the spirit world, traditionally all over the world, those colors, black and white. You look at his hat, it's a crossbone in the hat. He's associated with the spirit of Elegba, okay? You can always look at with the spirit of Elegba. And the spirit of Elegba is the protector over those who passed away. Those who have passed away in our lives, he's a protector over that, right? So I mixed a little bit of Elegba, the spirit of Elegba, with Duke Ellington, you know? Now that's my only sort of creative license as an artist, that I can do those things and put those two ideas together, right? And so he has a veve on his eye, right? Is that veve is when you pass away in traditional African cultures, they have this ground on the ground, they have this drawing, which is called a veve. And this represents when you pass away. So you go into the center of that particular circle, using that circle once again, and that's where you descend and when you ascend. So you go into that circle when you're passing away, and when you're living, you come back through that circle, okay, in birth. So life and death is based around that particular symbol. Around the image itself are these different characters. And I like to sometimes in the culture, they have these characters who are tricksters and they have their different personalities. I was just basing this on people that I knew in my community that were sort of tricksters too, you know, they had different personalities. Some people were nice, some were not so nice, right? The women to the far right with the crosses on top of her head, that was my grandmother. She was a really religious woman and she was serious about that. And she liked to sing. So I kind of gave a little cartoons kind of feeling about her. I had some people in my neighborhood, tough guys. So I gave them a crown with the cross and the sewn mouth. And so, and other characters that I have there, you know what I mean? We have a positive character, which is the guy with the hat on. And we have the devil on top of that. And then on top of that, we have a female woman that represents my sisters. You know what I mean? I have 4 sisters. So that represents a sense of my sisters. So this image itself is reflective of all these other people in our lives and the different lives that we live as people, because we have more than one life that we're living. And I think that's, in Western culture, that's a problem sometimes for me, is because in our lives, we've gone from in our mother's womb, from infancy, to being a baby, to being a teenager, to being an adult 3 or 4 times maybe, to being an elder. So those are different lives that we've lived. And I said that these images around are the different lives and the different connections that this image has to people who are no longer here or people who are present, are still here, okay? Can go to the next one, Metal, thank you. So Metal, is it possible to shrink that image down just a little bit? Because on my screen, it's really big. If not, don't worry about it, it's fine. I know what they are. I know them, I did them, so it's fine. Okay, so once again, I'm into painting, but now I'm talking about my painting in a series of a language, right? I want to communicate my same story that I've been doing, but now I want to do it symbolically by using symbols to communicate as a language, right? Sign language is communicating by using hands and shapes and forms to communicate an idea to someone by using that. So I'm almost like wanting to use my symbols in a way that you might sign and communicate with someone. So the one that's to the far, I will say far right, I guess it's for you guys far right, for me the far left, that this one right here is talking about a female spirit. And I was raised pretty much by my mom, single parent by my mom and my aunts. And so the idea of Black females in my family really being central to my development as a young man and as an adult is important. So at the very top, I sort of have, it's like, it's supposed to be a animal. In this case, it is the dog. We call it the Zolo dog in Mexican culture, which has a connection to the underworld and to the present. They move between both entities. And as we go down, we can see this character to the far left as he points to on the end, which is a female character that is protecting its community. And those points are important because you can't enter the soul of the person with those points. So they're to protect the community. I'm going to stay on that same side. As I go down, you see the woman represented. I have double breast with woman, and that's Yemanya, the spirit of Yemanya. And she is the spirit that protects everything in the water. She creates the idea of birth and community and children. So I have her legs down with those circles at the very bottom. That's her immersed in the water, okay? And on the following side, right across from Yemanya, you see a character that I have drawn that has a wing. That's the male character. So it's the female character on one side, the male character on the opposite side. And I brought history back to us again, ancient history, and I put the whole idea of Egyptian culture and the power of the pyramids that come and precede all of our history. So I have that triangle in that. As I go to the center, you see this X there, and that's a traditional African symbol. But at the same time, my idea for that X is the crossroads. In our lives, we all get to the crossroads. Crossroads is defined by conflict, right? If I'm having an issue with somebody or something, I've got to decide which way I'm going to go with it, right? And it's associated with also the culture of the blues, that blues musicians, they have a mythology about them coming to the crossroads and which way they wanted to go. Was it the way of sort of the street way of sort of the devil way, or was it the way of the religious and spiritual way? You know what I mean? So I use that sometimes as a symbol to represent that. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is the other one that has my, a metal. Can we just go back one time? Yeah. Go back to, yeah. And this one is interesting that it has a little more, it's a little more direct on my language. And each one of these symbols are people. In the very middle, you see a male and female character. And this piece is called In Search of New Land, okay? Sometimes in American society, even though we're born and raised here, there's a situation in my experience where I wanted to find another place. Where is that place that I can go to, living in the place where I'm physically living? Where can I go spiritually to have peace? Because sometimes in this physical world, I can't have it. I don't know how to have that. So as an artist, I can create these worlds, right? And that's the beauty of being a creative spirit, is that you can create your own world. It doesn't necessarily have to be the world you live in. You can live in multi-worlds as an artist. I think that's the beautiful thing of being an artist and a creative spirit, is that you can do that, right? So here I have my characters actually elevating, and I have each one of these symbols that you see and sort of symbolic pieces that you see here are all moving up. You can see them, and I wanted to make sure I had the background. They're all moving up, and notice that in the very top, they have a circular piece, and I have that black and white design, the Sankofa design. So I want to say that in this piece that my characters are evolving, right? And we're in search of a land, not so much physically, but a search of a land spiritually, right? Where we can find our own place and be at peace. And at the very top, you see there's a boat, there's a shape with almost like a church, like a symbol at the very top. And that's the actual boat, right? Because the trans-American slave trade, African-American people came over on that boat, right? But this is another boat that I created in my head. This is the boat of peace and tranquility and prosperity, you know what I mean? And empathy and love. So that's where this piece is coming from, of wanting to evolve ourselves and continue to move ourselves in search of new land in many different forms, or whatever form we define that we like to define that as, okay? Thank you, Meadow. Can we go to the next piece, please? So here's another set of paintings, and I just try to evolve the language that I'm defining by using certain symbols. And that for me is the concept, the idea is, how are we going to evolve as an artist, right? And it's not to say you can't do the same thing, but just put a little twist on each time you do it, put a little twist on it, and it's different. And that's my achievement, is trying to, each time I use a different medium, is trying to see how I can evolve the piece or evolve the piece of artwork. In this case, the blue and white piece is called avant-garde. Once again, I'm really associating it with jazz music, right? Avant-garde music is not like traditional jazz. Avant-garde music is more improvisational. That means that you're playing a tune, but you're creating things that just come from your internal feeling, right? So avant-garde jazz in American society has not really been celebrated that much as traditional jazz. So avant-garde jazz is, depicted in New York in the 60s and the 70s, because artists wanted to get away from dealing with sort of commercial venues in New York, where they had to be under the thumb of the owner of the club, right? So now they started to have these parties they had of their own, at their own, they call them loft parties. That's where the word loft parties come from. They had these loft parties, and everybody would come, and friends would come, and they would create their own sound and music, right? Which was different from commercial jazz that you sometimes experience before that, the 60s and the 70s. And it was also a time of civil rights movement and Black Power movement. So what I wanted to do with mine is take each one of a regular album, shape and form, to the far, I keep saying left, my left, you're right. And each one of these particular albums become a symbolic piece of our spirit. So each one of these colors represent different spirits. Shango, Yemanya, each one of these albums reflect a certain spirit, and they respect a certain direction that you sometimes have. So at the very top, we have the 4 directions, which again, I go back to the crossroads. And then we have the outer album in the very center has these small lines coming into the middle, which all these lines in our form comes to the center again. And then the last one is sort of our spider web. And the spider web is that we all exist. We come in and out of the spider web. So sometimes a lot of the images that I do, I repeat them over and over and over and over again, but in a different perspective, in a different way to present them, all right? At the very bottom, once again, I go back to Shango and I use that knife, which is metal and a blade, to associate with his spirit. And I just kind of leave it like that. At the very top of that image, I'm looking at shapes and forms when I started off. I was not trying to do anything in particular. I'm really interested in African art that they associate with Cubism. And we should associate Cubism with African art, not the other way around, okay? Picasso and all the other sort of modern artists used African art and took that form of Cubism and the form of simple shapes to represent forms. And so here, I couldn't tell you what they are. They're just shapes and forms that I got. The one that with the cross on the very top is a spirit that I was looking at in the book. And then I like my curved shapes at the bottom. And some of these can be figurative, like the one to the far right with the triangle and the 3 prongs at the bottom. That can be figurative if you want to, but in my thing, it's how these shapes are working in the space that I'm more concerned about, right? Other than how symbolic they are, how are these shapes working with each other in the space? And if not, then that's why I'm bringing back your white. So I'm going back in between some of these shapes using white to fill that space, to create that unity that I couldn't create without using that white space in between the different shapes. The next one is the Black and White series. This is a reflection of me living on this planet 66 years, and the things that that influenced me as I grew up. First thing that influenced me when I grew up was watching Soul Train on Saturday morning. That was like a godsend. You can watch Soul Train and just to see people dancing like I danced, and people, and Don Cornelius, and you can see Black entertainment that you normally could not see because you couldn't afford to go to a concert or anything. So Soul Train was our sort of way to go to a concert on Saturday morning and see all your favorite African-American entertainers and be able to connect to your culture that way. And also I have Marvin Gaye and his tune his record he had, Let's Get It On. I was one of my favorite tunes. I have the Pinwheel right next to Soul Train and Marvin Gaye is the Pinwheel. The pinwheel itself has something to do with quilting, the quilts of African-American quilts, right? So a lot of quilters, no matter where you are, no matter what country you are, you use that pinwheel design. So I wanted to represent that pinwheel design, sort of to give me the idea of respecting those people who are great artisans also, who actually were quilters, right? Gee's Ben, and it goes on and on of great quilters. At the very top above Soul Train is NIP. Nipsey Hussle was a guy who passed away, and he lived in my neighborhood when I grew up. So I had long left that area, but Nipsey, when he passed away, he was trying to unify the community and make sure that people in the community respected each other and were prosperous. So I put him in the symbol of a heart there. Once again, the bell is to summons the spirits and to summons the devoted ones in the culture. The sort of wavy line design next to that is supposed to be the fern plant. And in African culture, and particularly voodoo, the fern plant is represented with birth, making sure that the children come here safe, right? That the childbirth is a safe one, all right? At the very top, I use the word 40 water. Now, 40 water is a contemporary sort of idea that I got. And I actually got it from a hip hop artist, E40. E40 was always talking about 40 water. And I was like, what is 40 water? So instead of saying holy water, I wanted to bring it to a contemporary perspective and say 40 water, right? So 40 water could be something positive, alcohol, or it could be spiritual water. So I wanted to leave that to people's interpretation of what that is, okay? And I have the footsteps there. I have the symbol of Shango and the footsteps. And the footsteps are based on rhythms, jazz rhythms. So when you do a jazz rhythm, you do it in 2/4 or 2/8 or 12 bar blues. You can do it in anything. So 2/4 would be in a clap rhythm. I'll do it quickly. So you go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a rhythm that is created. So I use that in a reference to the foot and how people dance and move. Okay. All right. I'm going to the next one there. All right. So this is interesting. I've been going to Mexico City and was going to Mexico City to study and just look at Mexican artists and look at the sort of history of ancient Aztec and Inca and Mayan culture. And I wanted to incorporate that into my artwork. And one of my favorite Mexicano artists is Tamayo. So Tamayo is a person that really, really, really influences me on how he's depicting images, right? And how he's depicting images in a very traditional way. And so this piece is based on certain images. You know, I put myself, this big head that you see in the middle, that's me. So I just incorporated myself in that piece. And to the far right, where you see the bird on top of the head and the horizontal lines on the face, that is the female spirit once again. At the very bottom, this is the water spirit at the very bottom of that female character going straight down. And then we have, in Mexican culture, they have the Zolo dog. So I use the Zolo dog. And you notice that right across from the Zolo dog, this is the tree of life where the snake is on. And the snake and the Zolo dog are unifying. They're not confrontational with each other. You notice that they're both together. So I'm taking Mexican culture and African culture and mixing those two cultures together in the tree of life. There's a figure right below, if you can see it, that has passed away. And that's another, once again, I use the ancestor figure, right? And then I go to the very, after the tree of life, I go right to this hand. And sometimes they use it as, it could be the evil eye, they use that as association, or it could be the eye of Horus, okay? And this eye is not evil, it's an all-seeing eye, okay? And we all have this experience walking around. And if you say, you use your third eye, it's not the two eyes that you have here. The third eye is your brain, is your sense, your third sense that sometimes allows you to work out things that your two eyes can't work out or can't see, okay? Now, the next one I'm gonna do is we're gonna go to the next piece here. I sometimes use historical references. And here, there was a great revolutionary in Cuba. And he was a revolutionary, and he was trying to really take the peasants in Cuba and liberate and free them. So I use his image a little bit of like a African sculpture mixed with a totem of trying to create this character with all this energy vibration, right? And he has a flag. In that case, it was used as a cross, right? And a cross on his hat. And it wasn't the cross that you think in traditional Christianity, okay, but the cross that you use because African people had disguised their culture. If they were doing traditional African religion, when the slave master came by, they had to act like they were actually praising a Christian God. So this is the idea of this character having this vibration and this power, but also respecting his traditional religion and also incorporating that as time went on with traditional Christian Catholicism. So there's a mix between African religion and Christianity in African history, and right, because we've had that mix between those two cultures. And okay, we can move on to the next one. Now, this is another series. This is my collage series. And so sometimes it's important to look at what's accessible to you as an artist in your community. If I walk down the street, I'll find tons and tons of torn paper. I'll find paper all over the place. I love these, sometimes when the taggers or when the people put their stickers on poles and things like that. I love that because I'm going to come and get me some of those. If I like that sticker, it's coming off the pole, coming home and going to be part of my artwork. So here is a piece that I just took scrap paper that I had that I was thinking about. And once again, this is dealing with the Banji twins. And these are two friends of mine down here that look alike, but they're not twins at all. They're just friends of mine that I thought look alike. So I wanted to give them this image of this double sort of personality as a twin figure, right? As the idea of the Banji twins. In the culture, you always sacrifice. A rooster is always something. The animal, the blood of the rooster is sacrificed for the ancestors. And this is something that I went to the 99-cent store and they had all these different like little images of different things. You know, for 99 cents, they had an image of a rooster and I used it. I mean, I like to go everywhere to source materials and not just simply go to an art store. You can go many places. All the stuff behind it is a piece of scrap paper that I got. At the very top, you see the word holy, you know what I mean? The Holy Spirit. And that's references to African American culture. And I have the Black Power colors in there, red, black, and green. Blood. The blood is for the blood of the people. The red is. The black is for the people and the green is for land. So I wanted to incorporate that into just using a series of stencils. And I just used stencils and painted on top of them and incorporated that idea inside. Then to the far, at the very top, you can see I use Chinese mythology. If you look really close, there's a lot of Chinese symbols behind that, right? And my idea was that any culture, you take something from all cultures, if they had the ideas of the cultural spiritualism that they have can be incorporated, and some of those ideas can be associated with any culture all over the world, particularly African culture, any culture all over the world. You can take some symbols from China, anywhere, happiness, all those things are things that you can associate with different cultures. And to the far left of that, you see an image wrapped up. And at the very top, you see the idea of black and white stripes. Once again, that represents the spirit. And I always go back to my character of Shango. So I did Shango in the representation of red dots, which works nice on top of that. So I wanted to stay vertical. Even with the dots, I wanted to stay vertical with that idea. And if I stay vertical, that means that the image and the idea of just the lines and the dots are moving above, right? They're rising above. And so that was my idea for this one. And this piece is called Holy Holy. And at the very bottom of this piece, you can see a bull maybe, and you can see a series of colors there, colors of the rainbow. And the very bottom, you see a name, Philly Joe Jones. He was a great jazz drummer, and he is the person who has created the modern beat for jazz drumming, period. There's nobody else that had that sort of thunder and excitement and movement in his jazz playing as a drummer. And the drummer is the primary person of creating music all over the world. It comes from the conga, the drums. So that's the beat maker that creates the vibrations for us to evolve as a people. So that's why I put my favorite drummer, Billy Joe Jones, at the bottom. Okay, the next one, once again, this is called, and I just kind of put the word there, and it kind of didn't stay too well, and it's kind of nice that it just was kind of scrappy, and it's called gumbo, right? So if you're from Louisiana anywhere, you know what the word gumbo means. Gumbo means we'll have all these different things we put together to make something to eat, right? So gumbo is putting all these different elements together to create who we are, all right? So I have a little bit of Maya Angelou down at the bottom. I have Watch Out the Snake to defend ourselves. I have a little bit of Sweet Jimmy's. That was a place in Oakland, California, which one of the main places where African-American people used to congregate. It was a bar and a jazz club. So I put Sweet Jimmy as part of that gumbo for my experience here in Oakland. Feel My Soul and Set Me Free. I put some words there. I seen that circle. This is a McDonald's. That O is I got that from some McDonald's advertisement on the street. I like the texture of it. And then in the very symbol center, I use red, black, and green again, right? And I use the record, which is a 45 record. I love that symbol of the circle. And I use records a lot to represent that circle of unity, right? And in the middle of that, we have Blessingville, and that's Town Park. That's a skate park that was built in West Oakland by K.W. Williams and myself, and other people assisted us to create that skate park for kids in West Oakland. At the very Black Ball Universe, I don't know if people know Fantastic Negrito. He has several Grammys, got a Grammy this year for Best New Blues Artist. I started with him years ago, and he had an organization called Black Ball Universe. I took one of his stickers and stuck it right in the corner. There we go. And so even though I knew him before he became real famous and known, there we go. That's a historical sort of symbol there for the city of Oakland and a Grammy Award winner. All right. And this piece, once again, is called Gumbo. Okay, we can go to the next one. Okay. So here's more of my collage series, which I just kind of like go on and on with. I have at least maybe 15 or 20 different ones. And this is me taking things from everything from a flyer that you might see, a book cover you might like, everything you might see that you might have, photographs that I've used here, everything, stencils, photographs, spray paint. I kind of use all the elements and want to unify these things that have been found and discarded, right? These are images and pieces of paper that have been discarded. Now we're going to take these things that have been discarded, like a collage, right? Taking other elements and putting them together to create a story. That's what I think that's important for me, that I love to do, is that creating all these different elements, put them together and create a story from that, right? And in the one with the two women, they are being what they call baptized, right? So there's a baptism that is going on. They are cleansing themselves. They have become more holy in this respect. And so they are cleansing themselves, right? Now to the right of them, well, to the left of them, you're right, is my grandfather, Willie Johnson, WJ, right? Who I didn't know very, very well, right? But who was very much a part of my being here on this universe, on this planet. So I used him as an iconic image of my ancestral connection. I have the bull at the very top of that, symbolizing different, what the bull means in different cultures. I have the skull, which is Dia de los Muertos, you know what I mean? Because I put that into it as looking at our ancestors and revisiting, like you do every year, Dia de los Muertos, revisiting our ancestors, giving respect and honor to our ancestors, and sitting with our ancestors and communicating with them and keeping them alive, right? So the idea of death and dying, I reject the idea of death and dying. There's only that we only transition from one physical self to another entity, another self, right? But we always keep our ancestors alive. And that's why I do a lot of work, is to bring back the memories and the images of people who are passed away, and then also things that we are present too. So in the middle here, it's kind of hard to see to the far right. There's a square that you see with small squares on it. It actually is a civil rights movement image of a dog trying to bite a black man in a protest. And to the right of that is all my aunts and my mother is on the far. So all those faces on the far right is my mother and all my aunts that made sure I, did what I needed to do in life. I also have, this was a box. It was kind of Mama's Munchies. I don't know. I got that from my friend had a box of cookies or something, and I just cut that out. I thought it was in Mama's Munchies. You couldn't beat it as a symbol, and the symbol is a Black Power movement of the Afro of the woman in the 1960s. At the very bottom, I have the number 7, and a blue bird that's associated with Yemanya again. All the spirits have a number. And Yemanya's spiritual number is number 7. That's why I have number 7 on top of the bird. So my favorite poet of all time is Amir Baraka. And at the time I was doing this particular piece, he had passed away. And he used to come to Oakland every year for the Black Malcolm X Festival. And he had passed away. And when he had passed away, I wanted to find one way to put him on this piece. So his name is at the very bottom, okay? So that's why this piece evolves in different ways. And we have a series of numbers down the middle, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, that number was given to me, some collage paper was given to me by a elder that lived across the street from me. And he used to work in Uganda. He was a teacher in Uganda. And this is paper that came from a collage of how he used to teach children in Uganda. So these words and these numbers right here are based on a Ugandan text. So that added another element of Africa back into it. And right above that, you can see the head and the foot. So in the spirit world, you are anointed by your head and your feet, okay? Head and feet, okay? So I'm gonna go to the next one. It says breakbeat. Oh, okay. Metal, can we just go back one time? And go back to the other one. Yeah, right there. So this is another collage, once again, you guys. It's based on, once again, this is called Jump for Joy. It is based on a lot of different types of flyers that I got. Some of the kids at the people at the very bottom of this are people I know personally who still living. They're students of mine. I've got Native American images of, Red Bull, Cochise, and I have James Baldwin. As these are people that I really admired, right? And things that I thought were important. Life is Living, they have it every year in Oakland. African American Women Feminism, Soul Salon 10, which is a collective from Oakland. Taj Mahal, who's from Oakland, California, one of the greatest blues players from Oakland, California. I wanted to add everybody into this, that the struggles that people have had all over the country. I got Zapata at the very top. So I wanted to I got Join Tony from Oakland. So I just involved a lot of different images and ideas with this one. And Bootsy Collins, who had his, I think, 40 or 50th year anniversary. So I put his image at the bottom too. So at this time, when I'm putting these things together, I'm really dealing with what's happening maybe in the past, and what's happening in the present too. So some of these things are what I see in the present, you know what I mean? And it's more of my style is more of an improvisational style too. So it's not like I'm planning this out, sometimes. And sometimes I'm just going with images that I see and find and put together and make sense for me. Okay, Metal, thank you. Go to the next one, please. So once again, my whole series of this collage stuff is the walls are talking. Really, it's that these walls that we have, they're like in Jewish culture, they have something called a wailing wall. You know what I mean? And I got this idea when I saw people putting pieces into the wailing wall. I was like, whoa, I like that idea. So then I associated that idea with people in the South who didn't have very much, and they would use magazines or whatever they could to cover their walls to keep the air out, right? And so I wanted to say, how can I create this wall form to create a story around my family? This one right here has my great uncle, who was in Bodie, Oklahoma, which was a Black-owned town. He was the banker, one of the first African-American bankers in America. And he was the banker. So I wanted to do a historical thing. I have everything from using images right underneath him is the images of my great-grandparents and all that. It's kind of hard to see. I have my mother there, I have my aunts there. I sort of and I wanted to put sort of fabric, like a quilt, right? And so I put a little bit of everything. And in the silver piece that you see, that round silver pan, I have Bessie Smith. And I love jazz. And I love Bessie Smith and her story, all right? And it's just come out on HBO. So Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey. And Bessie Smith's story was interesting that she was very successful and one of the richest women in America at the time. But when she had an accident on the road, they wouldn't allow her to go to the nearest hospital, which was a white hospital. And by the time they got her together to go to the other hospital, she had died already. So she was an extreme victim of racism in a lot of ways. And so I always wanted to use her as an iconic image for that time period, but also for her artistry and how she stood up for herself. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to create this image to protect her. So that's why I have her in this old sifter. This is a sifter from the 1930s. At the very bottom, I have everybody from my great-grandmother to my grandmother to my great-aunt. So the first one, the small image, is my great-great-grandmother, and then my grandmother, and then my great-great-aunt is down at the bottom. The other one to the far right is also the sort of the same idea. The one from the far right came first, and then the one to my left came second. And this was the same thing of really taking the same idea and bringing what was happening in the 1960s, as far as the Black Power movement was concerned, and that whole movement, I wanted to kind of play around with that idea. So there's civil rights movements at the very top. Me and I think it was Cable Conte or something, we came with instead of manifesto, mamafesto. We wanted to use that word. Some people always say manifesto, we say mamafesto, you know. And we talked about the ideas, the words of the blues there. In living black and white is what it is there. And I have down at the bottom, at the very top, that's my grandmother, great-grandmother at the very top. And the bottom is the idea of Huey Newton. So my great-grandmother never got a chance to be able to have a platform where she can identify herself as being proud about herself, right? And having the world recognize that. So my grandmother is the evolution of Huey Newton and any particular movement in America. All our grandparents are. And so I just kind of played around with that idea a little bit. I love Nina Simone, so I put Nina Simone in there. She was a very iconic musician and artist and pianist, and her ideas and concepts on how she wanted to right the wrongs of what was happening in America through her music was important. So I try to, always incorporate some of these iconic images to tell the story of where we are and where we need to go. Okay, next one, please.
Raya, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, because time, I know time is the issue.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe one or two more, and then because I want to leave at 2:15, at least 15 minutes for questions.
Okay,
so it's
good.
2:09 right now. So okay.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here, Meadow. Then we're going to push through a couple of more. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So this is my mixed media stuff, you guys. Mixed media, and people have sent me photographs. African American people send me photographs because they didn't know who the photographs were, even though they had them in their family. They didn't know who the photographs were connected to. So they had no history of these photographs. So I told them, give them to me. I will reunite these photographs as one family again, even though they've been disconnected through years and years. And I'm talking some of these photographs are at least 60 to 80 years old, okay? And so I wanted to reunite this family, and this is the Gilder family of Gilder, Texas. Of Sassoon, Texas. And I wanted to really, and we have Woodsville and we have different parts that they said they might have been from. Okay, Jasper, Texas, they might have been from there. But this was a Gilder family. And I wanted to unite this family in one way. And at the very top, and why I say mixed media, because I'm not only painting and drawing, I'm adding things to it. I have a bundle of wood at the top. In the middle, I've created an altar with an African sculpture in the middle. At the bottom, I've created a series of pans, that you get if you go to Giant Burgers. You get those nice pedal pans, and maybe they'll donate you a couple to you. And I put the images of the ancestors, the pictures I got inside of those pans. So I wanted to reunite this family. And I don't know anybody. The person who gave them to me only knew who one person was out of all these people. And they're all related. You can look at them and see the relationship. But I wanted to use color, and I use a lot of dots. You notice I use colors, I use drips. I use all these different things to create a dimensional drawing. And then I use at the very top, Star, Texas Star. But the bundle itself is unifying our families again. That's why I put that black and white bundle at the top. I mean, that stick bundle at the top is unifying all those disconnected families that has been disconnected from slavery all the way to the present, is bringing them back together. And that's why I have the black bundle at the very top with the wood form there, you guys. And then I created a whole idea around the family, bringing the family back together through the photographs I had, okay? We go to the next one. Okay, we're gonna do this one right here, Meadow, and I'm gonna stop, okay?
Okay.
We'll do this one, yeah. Okay, and so this is also my sculptural stuff that I do. And this sculptural style is called assemblage, right? Once again, it's like collage. It's pretty much the same thing. Taking different elements, putting them together, creating a story. That's basically what it is. This one here with the tambourine around it is based on my grandmother. So my grandmother is in that image, in that circle inside that tambourine. She was a really religious woman. She loved to go to church. She was very spiritual. So I wanted to represent her by using the tambourine, the sound and the vibrations of a tambourine, right? That are universal. When you hit a sound, it's universal. We can't stop that sound. Even though we can't hear it, we can't see it anymore, but it's continuous in the universe. And then at the bottom, I used a couple of gourds, right? And the gourds possess the spirit of that person, all right? And then I used a rope that's wrapped around. Now, ropes can be used for different ways, but this is a rope that was to unify. And the black and white is, once again, representing the spirit of the person. And the broom is important because there's two things that I use the broom. The broom is, we're either going to take a broom and expose the atrocities of life, or we're going to take the broom and sweep it under the rug. So this particular broom has dualities, right? It has the idea of how people swept under the rug, right? Or the duality of also jumping over the broom and getting married in African American culture. Okay, so I'm going to go one more time, and we're going to stop after this, you guys. So the one at the very, I have two images. I'll just talk about the one at the top right now. This one right here is also assemblage. So I took a wagon wheel from a simple toy, and in the middle I have that wagon wheel. Around that wagon wheel is that metal piece, and that metal piece itself is from a burner, from a metal piece that they use on a stove. It's an old burner. So I put a wagon wheel inside of that because I thought that wheel itself is the wheel of life. That's what for me it is. It's the wheel of life, right? At the very top, there's the two arms of cheers, left to right. There's the two arms from cheers, and I united those two arms of cheers. So the two pieces that go up and curve out are from cheers, right? Just the arms of cheers. So I thought that had a nice line that really went out. And then of course, we go back to Shango and we have the knife in the middle to protect all of our ancestors, those who past, present, and future again. And at the very bottom, we have fish, right? I took some wooden fish that I found at a flea market or somewhere. And the fish is always, and even in Christian religion, the fish is a representation of sharing your bounty with your community, right? So the fish is saying that we must share all these things with our community always and be a part of our community. And so that's the important thing for us to do. So that's going to be the end of my presentation for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed you guys, and I look forward to the questions.
Yay. Okay, we can start with the questions. So raise your hand. We're going to be taking down names in the chat and then try to call you guys in orders that we see your hands. And any questions or comments or anything about Kaya's artwork. I know you guys are all really excited, so let's take it away.
Lizzie, I see your hand up, and after Lizzie, Joe, you can go after Lizzie.
Okay.
Well, first and foremost, I would like to introduce myself. I'm, everyone from my program, they usually call me Lizzie.
Okay.
Then my full name is Elizabeth. So my question is, and first of all, I'm impressed with your talent, your skills, everything that you did in one album portfolio that you have made is very creative. I love your creative mind, body, and soul. And what else? Oh yes, I am Mexican, so I'm very familiar with what you just said earlier. And also, my question is, how do you manage to do everything in one portfolio with two hands?
Oh, that's a great that's a great question. Part of it is that working on more than one piece at a time is sometimes good for me because I like to work fast. But I like to map out different types of styles, like you said, so I'm going to do some paintings. So what I try to do is do only 5 to 10 pieces of each style and then move on. So I'm going to do 5 paintings or 5 sculptures or 5 collages and then move on and then get back to that if I need to take that series and expound on it and make it a little more in that series. But that's the way I do it. Just do 5 pieces and then move on to something different. And thanks for your question.
Sorry. What was that?
Said thank you for your question.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, so then Joe, Tanisha, Delisa, and then Alice. So Joe, you're next.
You mean Al?
Yeah, Al. Joe, where are you?
Hi, Veronica.
I see Larry, and then after Al, Larry.
Okay. My name is Joe Spears. My question is I like your work you did.
Thank you.
Which one is your favorite one the most? Your
That's a
favorite
good question.
one.
Wow. I have a lot of favorites. Some of my favorite styles that I probably do is probably my collages, because I started out with collage when I was very young, and I have hundreds of those things. But I think the collage was probably some of my favorite stuff because it allowed me to not have very much money. It allowed me access to go to the library and Xerox images. It allowed me a little more freedom because I didn't have a lot of resources. So you can take some glue and some scissors and papers and cut it up and create a collage. And so that's one of my favorite forms to work from.
Amazing work.
All right, thank you. Bless.
It was hard. It was hard or easy.
Well, it can be easy sometimes, but a lot of times it's hard because you're trying to do something different each time. So you don't want to repeat the same. I don't want to repeat the same process over again. So sometimes it comes out hard, but I think that to work through something being hard is just keep doing it, right? Just keep doing it, keep evolving. Have a whole bunch of mess ups. It's okay to have a lot of mess ups. And eventually you will evolve and find your way.
Oh,
Tanisha,
when
you wanna ask
it was
Tanisha, you
I'm
want to
done.
Question to customer.
I'm done.
Are you done, Joe?
Yes. Go ahead, Joe.
Tanisha?
Hi, I'm Tanisha Warren.
Mhm.
When you started.
Okay,
Huh?
can we spotlight Tanisha?
Yeah.
Oh, there, I got her. Are you ready, Tanisha?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tanisha Warren. I heard you talking about the gumbo because I am from Mississippi, and my mom does all the cooking, like southern foods and stuff like that. I like the one of the pictures you said from the New Orleans.
Yeah, about gumbo, yeah. Okay. So yeah, so I am my family's from Mississippi too. So Utica, Mississippi. So there we go. We got something in common like that. And gumbo, the gumbo piece was, I think I was at Target or somewhere. I don't know where. And I had some of these. I love dots, red and white dots. So I got some paper from Target, and the gumbo thing was really like you said in Louisiana, where you put all these different elements together that normally probably at one time didn't go together, and you come up with this stew, or you come up with this, in this case, artwork that really gives you a sense of all these different elements that make up a story. And so that's what my gumbo piece was about, really trying to make up pieces and incorporate people that really were important as part of the gumbo, particularly Maya Angelou, who was one of my favorite poets. So I put her in there as part of that piece, you know what I mean? Because she was one who created that gumbo too. In a literary sense, she created the gumbo up through her writings. And so I wanted to
Okay.
incorporate her. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm from Mississippi, And my mom cooked gumbo all the time from back home. So that's why I like your artwork from there.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Delisa, you want to ask your question?
You sound like your own spirit.
Delisa, you got cut off. Can you repeat your question?
Hey, Veronica, who's it? What's this like? Who's this like honing? What is this like? What is this?
Well, maybe we should do another question and come back to Delisa because it seems like she's frozen.
I'm
Oh.
back. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you're back? Oh, she's back.
Okay.
It sounds like your drawings have things with spiritual in it.
Yeah, yes. Most of my, and I like your backdrop there. I see you got the chakra right there behind you. See that? That blue image right behind you, that blue, that's what it is. That first piece I did was that yellow. See that yellow? If you look at the image behind you, you can see that. There you go. See that yellow chakra right in the middle? There you go. So my first piece was based on that. There you go. You got it right there. That's the spiritual connection.
Those solar plex, right?
Yeah, solar plex, exactly. So that's the connection. You got it right there. Hey, so all my stuff is based on spiritualism because in one sense or another, that's how I'm going to get through the day, right?
Cool.
Sometimes I might not get through the day, but I get through the day by keeping my faith and keeping my
I have
spiritualism.
another one too.
Oh, you got another? Yeah, you got the whole. Yeah, you got it broken down there. Uh-oh. I know you're gonna do a drawing. After this is over, you're gonna do a drawing inspired by that. I know. And
I did a drawing at Creative Growth of the chakra.
oh, did you? Okay, okay. We
I
got
was
to
going
see
to
that.
make it to a run, but it was too complicated.
Okay, so can I ask you a question? What's your
Sure.
spiritual connection to your work?
Oh boy, that's a good question.
Well, you can think about it. It's all good.
You put me in the spot.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. You can think about it. So that's my spiritual connection, is really looking at my family, looking at the spiritualism, my grandmother who was really religious and those types of things. So creating those ideas that give me a sense of how to move forward, right, in my life in a positive way. So that's why I think spiritualism is so important in my work.
My spiritual is mostly with earth, nature,
There you go.
my ancestors,
There you go, ancestor. That's mine. Yep.
my family.
There you go. We on the same on the same wavelength. There you go. We got to do a collaboration. There you go. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right.
Very beautiful. Now, Alice B, it's your turn, followed by Larry and then Avery.
To let you guys know,
Oops, sorry.
To let you guys know that my mom and my dad and my grandparents are passed away too, not just you.
Mm-hmm.
They are very, very creative too. Like my mom is a very creative lady, because she's the one who doing all the costumes and stuff. And I was younger back then.
Mm-hmm.
And she doing that too. And her favorite color, I didn't know what's her favorite color, is lavender.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really, really, really connected to my mom's favorite color of all times is the lavender purple, spiritual wise.
Right.
Because I'm
Alice,
very
did you have a
connected to
question
my
for Kyle?
mom. Because I'm very connected to my mom, and I'm very much connected to my dad too, because they both have disabilities, one in the family, which I have in me.
Mm-hmm.
Got my mom's spiritual eyes. She had blue eyes. And I don't see very well without my glasses.
Mm-hmm.
I see bluey stuff.
That's
Yeah.
great. Let's give a chance to Larry ask his question.
Just give me a second. Give me a second, please.
We
Because
don't
really
class
have enough
is
time for
almost
all the questions.
over.
Yeah.
The class is
Well,
almost over.
we might go over a few minutes, you guys. We're used to going over.
Just
But
give me a second.
one more
please.
second, Al, okay, buddy? Just one more second to ask that
I'm not
question.
going too far into the thing.
Okay,
I'm just
great.
giving the steps.
Okay.
To let you guys know and to you that I got my talents from two of my parents that runs in my family genes, and my disabilities in my family genes. And I am very, very connected to it. And I love your Mason tracing and coloring ways is very interesting to me, because that was why I spelled it through the chat in capital letters to see, and that's probably it. So I just let you know about why I did what I did, and you are a very amazing man.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Thank you so much. We're gonna go to, was it Larry Randolph next?
Yeah, it was
Oh, yeah.
Larry. Larry.
Okay, let me see if I can find Larry.
Oh yeah. So good afternoon. Oh, and it says nice to meet you, Cal Fortune.
Yes, nice to meet you.
I'm Larry, and then of course my last name is Randolph. That it is Larry Randolph. That's me.
Right on.
Well, to say that I'm kind of impressed about what you showed, and then some point I like about what I've seen, and then I like that picture. I like the one with these two old men was on there, and he said that they look a little bit like twins. You say
Mm-hmm.
they look kind of like twins, because I done some twins myself sometime before.
Okay.
And then that I'm going to do again after a while, real soon. Something I'm going to make. But when I do some twin like this, I make it in a cartoon animated, and I'm good with cartoon animated with the help of some comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like that part earlier where I was seeing with this, like this guy wearing the hat. He reminded me of the Shadow Master from the cartoon Disney movie, The Princess and the Frog. I seen that earlier. Remind me of it. Cause I like to do some twins, and then sometime I did some superhero from my own imagination that I haven't done in years. But then sometime, and then last year I did a cartoon animation of a soap opera called Wolf Roll. That was something, and many more that I'm gonna make two twin guys, and I'm gonna be doing two twin females, of course, black kind, and I do some white Caucasian kind, and in the future I might do some of the Asian kind, maybe Chinese kind, Mexican, Italian, Filipino, who knows, Cambodian, Cuban. It could be any kind.
Thanks, Larry. That's a big plan.
Yeah, and as I said again, nice to meet you, Cal Fortune. Yeah, I know that's your name. I hope to remember that.
All right, nice to meet you, Larry. My pleasure, man. Thank you.
Okay, bye, Larry.
Avery is what it says in the chat.
Are you here, Avery, still? Oh, yeah, I see.
Yes, I'm still here. First of all, Clive, is it Clive?
Kaya.
Clive, I wanted to say, or Kara.
Yeah.
Kaya.
Yeah.
No, you're Kaya.
Kaya.
Okay. Hey, man, I just wanted to say I love your art, man. Very awesome art. Now, I wanted to say I love how you added spiritualism to that. I myself am a spiritualism.
Right.
I am, and I love how you added the third eye thing. speaking of the third eye, I myself have a third eye. I am a medium. I connect with spirits, and I connect with spiritualism myself. So yeah, just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Avery. I
Yeah.
think Julie is up next. Yes, there
Yes.
you are.
About time for me to go. It's about time for me to go.
Hi, Jack.
All right, Jack, thanks for joining us. See you later.
I wrote this in that I am very thankful that you did an artist talk with us. I would really enjoy an artist workshop taught by you, like when we get back to in-person services classes. So I can learn more art skills techniques that you are very skilled at.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Julie. I've lost track. Who's up next?
I think that's everyone.
Oh,
That's
Dan
everyone.
Hamilton might have his hand up. I can't tell. Dan, did you want to say something? Or do you just resting your arm like that?
Casey has his hand up as well.
Oh, Casey.
Casey, yes.
All right, who should I go
I
to?
say thank you, Casey says. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you,
It was
Casey.
really awesome to see what you made and how you layer things on top of each other.
The collage.
Yeah, and then how you collage and put things together on top of each other. And then you cut things out, and then you use your imagination and come up with something that's even better.
Oh, thank you very
So
much.
thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Joe, do you have more questions, Joe?
Yes, I got more questions. How, when you started all this?
Oh, when did I start?
Yeah.
Well, I think I started when I was really young. I think I was about maybe, my mother was an art teacher and a dance teacher. So I think I started when I had to go with her all the time and sit around, and she gave me some pencil and paper and said, draw while she was doing dance class. So I think that's kind of inspired me a little bit. I was about 4 or 5 years old, starting to draw, and kind of like, I liked the drawing because I had 4 sisters. And later on, as I got older, I had like four sisters. And so drawing was sort of a way that was almost a form of meditation for me. But I thought that it gave me also a sense of identity, that I can actually find my power in my drawing. And I didn't have to share with very many people. I can just kind of do that alone amongst myself. And it was kind of soothing, you know? So it was, once again, meditative and a spiritual experience, I guess I could say.
My dad was an artist too.
Who's that?
Delisa.
Oh.
My dad was an artist.
Oh, great. That's great.
Yeah.
Can you tell me
Well,
go ahead.
oh, sorry, Kaya, what'd you say?
No, it's okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say, are there any more questions, or should we give Kaya a big round of applause? And
Yay!
Everybody.
Yay!
Yo.
My cow.
Yay! God. Yay! Woo, 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 woo.
My dad was
Woo, 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 woo.
Come back again.
Yay!
Joe, you're the best.
Yay! I did that for you, Melo, because he's your friend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. One day, bring him back again.
Man, it sounded like the warrior is suffering.
Melo, can you come back again, Melo?
Well, we want to invite him back, but I think it'd be a great idea, like what Julie said, if he could do a project with you guys in the studio, but maybe he would want to do one on Zoom too. Who knows?
Yeah, he could do one in class, in watercolor class. You could do it. They help him.
Yeah.
Melo.
All right. Well, I guess we should say goodbye. I mean,
All right.
that talk was so amazing. I can't say enough. It was really awesome.
That's amazing.
And
I like
very informative too. You did a very good informative job.
Thank you.
Very nice job.
Thank you, guys.
Keep it breezy.
Keep it breezy.
Yeah.
Bye, Sarah.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a great evening.
Of course, Kat.